JK Rowling first publicly expressed that she was a TERF in December 2019, when she defended a feminist by the name of Maya Forstater. Forstater had lost her job for saying that trans women are men. Ever since, JK Rowling has been distinguished in the public eye as an advocate for free speech in the face of extremists. However, there is direct evidence that her free speech advocacy goes back over a decade earlier. I don't think many people have noticed this, but Harry Potter's plot is quite anti-woke in its nature. In this video, I will show all the subtle and not so subtle examples of her free speech advocacy within the screenplay of the Harry Potter films. Hi, my name is Mariana, and on my channel I dissect film, television, and video games from a radical feminist perspective. The primary antagonist in Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix is Professor Dolores Umbridge. I want you to watch this scene, and you'll soon understand what I'm trying to get at here.
From now on, you will be following a carefully structured, ministry-approved course of defensive magic. Yes.
There's nothing in here about using defensive spells?
You will be learning about defensive spells in a secure, risk-free way.
Well, what use is that? If we're going to be attacked, it won't be risk-free.
It is the view of the ministry that a theoretical knowledge will be sufficient to get you through your examinations, which, after all, is what school is all about.
And how's theory supposed to prepare us for what's out there?
There is nothing out there, dear. Who do you imagine wants to attack children like yourself?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe Lord Voldemort.
You have been told that a certain dark wizard is at large once again. This is a lie.
It's not a lie. I saw him. I fought him.
Detention, Mr. Potter.
Professor Umbridge believes in safe spaces in classrooms and not allowing students to become stronger by facing danger through experience. She denies the truth that Voldemort has returned and suppresses students' freedom of speech. This is eerily similar to modern college campuses. Because of the school policies enacted by Umbridge, the quality of education at Hogwarts suffers, and the students are unable to learn how to defend themselves, which is extra dangerous at a time when Voldemort has just been resurrected. The students therefore band together to teach themselves. Some students try to stop Harry and his team from practicing defense spells, and those students are given medals. This is reminiscent of real-life college campuses, where woke teachers tend to give preferential treatment and grades to students who reflect the same political opinions, because extreme left-wing political opinions are seen as quote-unquote more intellectual. Many times, students are not able to explore other ideas or express their genuine opinions. Professor Umbridge enforces rules not because the rules are moral or encourage good behavior in students, but in order to assert power. For example, when the students begin organizing to teach themselves, she bans student organizations altogether. Later on, Harry's band of students use the spells they taught themselves to fight off Death Eaters, showcasing that their way of learning was more effective than Umbridge's. Professor Umbridge also gets rid of the art in Hogwarts Castle, which can be seen as a form of censorship. Professor Umbridge is an employee of the Ministry of Magic. The Ministry of Magic is basically the government, but for wizards and witches. The head of the Ministry of Magic, Cornelius Fudge, was threatened by Dumbledore and thought that he was making an army at Hogwarts to overthrow him. Dumbledore couldn't be controlled and didn't cater to the Ministry. Therefore, Fudge sent Umbridge to Hogwarts Castle in order to lessen Dumbledore's power. There are many similarities between the Ministry of Magic and how American left-wing politicians and activists have been acting in recent years. Fudge uses propaganda in the form of newspaper articles in order to gain power. He uses this propaganda to smear people who defy him and tell the truth. Harry Potter is smeared in the paper, and as a result, other students start to avoid him. In a way, the Ministry of Magic socially isolates him in order to weaken his power.
Well, if I were you-know-who, I'd want you to feel cut off from everyone else. Because if it's just you alone, you're not as much of a threat.
Social isolation as a political strategy is something that is used all too often by woke activists. Additionally, the newspapers shift blame and demonize good people like Sirius Black. Meanwhile, Professor Umbridge is praised in the papers despite being a completely incompetent teacher. This parallels American mainstream media, which tends to be extremely biased and self-serving towards those who own the newspapers. Many newspapers and news programs do not care for the well-being of their readers and viewers, but rather care about money and political power. This is even reflected in the film's set design, as the architecture of the Ministry of Magic's headquarters is symmetrical and orderly, alluding to its cold authority. In visual art, symmetry subconsciously creates a feeling of predictability, and therefore control and stability. As a result, symmetry is often used in architecture of institutions that want to convey authority, for example, in the White House, though the sculpture displayed in the headquarters is more overt in its messaging.
Are those?
Muggles. In their rightful place.
In the Harry Potter world, Muggles are non-magic humans. The most notable characteristic of woke culture, though, is its tendency to be overly cruel regarding punishments. People like Maya Forstater, for example, lose their jobs for having non-violent political opinions, and others have faced worse, like complete social ostracization and severe public shaming disproportionate to what is deserved. Similarly, the Ministry is unfair in its judgments and punishments. They try to expel Harry for self-defense when he used magic in front of a Muggle to save both himself and his cousin. It is against the rules of the Ministry to use magic in front of a Muggle and also outside of school under the age of 17. Additionally, Professor Umbridge is cruel when she punishes Harry for speaking up and warning other students about Voldemort's return. She punishes Harry by making him engrave the words, "I must not tell lies," on his hands. This is not only denying the truth, but is also physical abuse. Later, she almost casts the Cruciatus Curse, aka an illegal torture spell, on Harry. When Professor Umbridge is called out on her cruel punishments, she exhibits cult-like behavior that prioritizes loyalty above ethics.
So silly of me, but it sounds as if you're questioning my authority in my own classroom. Minerva.
Not at all, Dolores. Merely your medieval methods.
I am sorry, dear. But to question my practices is to question the ministry, and by extension, the minister himself. I am a tolerant woman, but the one thing I will not stand for is disloyalty.
Professor Umbridge is an employee of the Ministry of Magic, and she can be seen as an extension of the institution's tyranny. Her demeanor is polite and pleasant at first glance, but after a few seconds comes off as falsified politeness masquerading cruelty, egoism, and a thirst for power. She abuses her power by tormenting students and by firing innocent professors. If, after all this evidence, you are still in denial that Professor Umbridge and the Ministry of Magic are parallel to extreme woke activists, take a look at this tweet thread from JK Rowling herself. In this thread, Rowling explicitly explains that although she herself is politically left of center, Umbridge is a villain that encapsulates the demeanor of many left-wing ideologues. Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix also stresses the value of mental fortitude and controlling emotions. Voldemort and Harry have connected minds, and Harry must train himself to not allow Voldemort into his mind by being mentally disciplined. Voldemort represents tyranny, extremism, and hate.
We are joined tonight by Miss Charity Burbage, who until recently taught at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Her speciality was Muggle studies. It is Miss Burbage's belief that Muggles are not so different from us. She would, given her way, have us mate with them. To her, the mixture of magical and Muggle blood is not an abomination, but something to be encouraged.
He wanted to elevate pure-blood wizards, aka wizards born with two magical parents, above everyone else. Snape must train Harry to have the emotional control to not allow Voldemort access to his mind. This is similar to modern culture, where extremism and lies are constantly being spread everywhere. In order for someone to remain sane, they need to have mental fortitude and not allow bad people and ideas to get into their mind. In the films, Voldemort's name is rarely said. In fact, most wizards are afraid to speak it, and refer to him as, quote, he who shall not be named, or, quote, you know who.
There was one wizard that went as bad as you can go, and his name was...
Maybe she wrote it down.
No, I can't spell it. All right. Voldemort.
Voldemort.
In one of the early scenes in the first movie, Hagrid struggles to say Voldemort's name. Though later on, Hermione points out that refusing to say Voldemort actually increases his power in a way by spreading fear.
Voldemort killed my parents. He was nothing more than a murderer.
You must be very brave to mention his name. Or very foolish.
Fear of a name only increases fear of the thing itself.
Similarly, in modern politics, if you are afraid to talk about a political subject clearly because probable cancellation, this increases fear even more and increases the level of tyranny. In Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1, Voldemort takes over the Ministry of Magic. The Ministry begins printing propaganda against anyone who isn't a pureblood wizard. During this movie, these books are shown to be in Umbridge's desk. The covers heavily resemble mid-20th century propaganda art. Mudbloods and How to Spot Them resembles Nazi-era propaganda in the artwork as well as in the wording of the title. The cover of When Muggles Attack resembles Cold War Red Scare propaganda art. I wasn't expecting to see Nazi-style propaganda artwork in Harry Potter, but it's pretty blatantly there. The first book is about how to spot people who aren't pureblood wizards, and the second book is about how people who aren't pureblood wizards are violent. Both are clearly extremist works. There is an additional connection made between the Ministry of Magic and Voldemort when it is revealed that Umbridge is in possession of one of the Horcruxes, a necklace that contains a fragment of Voldemort's soul. It darkens the character of whoever wears it. The films don't say how long Umbridge owned the necklace, but her ownership of it is worth mentioning. Throughout the series, a significant part of the plot focuses on the similarities between Harry and Voldemort. These two characters are connected in many ways. For example, they both have wands with phoenix feathers from the same phoenix, who only ever gave 2 feathers. They both are able to talk to snakes, are orphans, and are incredibly powerful. They are so similar that Harry expresses concerns over this. It is later revealed that the reason for their similarities is because Harry has a piece of Voldemort's soul within him. However, Dumbledore points out that it's not how they are similar that's important, but how they are different. For example, Harry was almost sorted into Slytherin house, but chose to be in Gryffindor. Harry was ill-treated by Muggles his entire childhood, but did not allow that to cloud his judgment of all non-purebloods. Harry and Voldemort are remarkably similar, but it's their choices that separate them. It's important to acknowledge that we are all capable of terrible feats, but can remain good through good decisions. To be incapable or harmless is not necessarily a positive trait, for incapable people are weak and unable to defend themselves or those around them. It is better to be able to see your own capabilities for evil and good, acknowledge them, and therefore acknowledge the gravity of the choices you make. Perhaps JK Rowling's greatest lesson to her readers, then, is that everyone is capable of evil, but also, evil is a choice that everyone can refuse to make.
You see, sir, I couldn't help but notice certain things, certain similarities between Tom Riddle and me.
I see. If I'm not mistaken, Harry, he transferred some of his powers to you the night he gave you that scar.
Voldemort transferred some of his powers to me.
Not intentionally.
So the Sorting Hat was right. I should be in Slytherin.
It's true, Harry. You possess many of the qualities that Voldemort himself prizes. Determination, resourcefulness, and if I may say so, a certain disregard for the rules. Why then did the Sorting Hat place you in Gryffindor?
Because I asked it to.
Exactly, Harry, exactly. Which makes you different from Voldemort. It is not our abilities that show what we truly are. It is our choices.
After rewatching the Harry Potter film series, I am completely unsurprised that JK Rowling is a supporter of free speech. As a child, I never noticed the free speech messaging of the films. The Harry Potter franchise was such an integral part of my childhood, and I'm sure that many others feel the same. Harry Potter is on par with shows like Avatar: The Last Airbender, in that although the films are made for a child audience, they are high quality enough and have enough sophistication to appeal to nostalgic adults as well. And I could not recommend rewatching the film series enough. I am new to making video essays on YouTube, but I plan to make more soon and consistently. If you enjoyed this video, please consider following me on Twitch as well. I live stream every weekday, so if you want to hang out and chat, feel free to stop by. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.